Let's now bring in a man that has played the game at the highest level. He calls the game at the highest level. He lives at the highest level in America, in Denver. Mark Schlereth, my man Stink. What'd you think about this trade when you saw it?
I thought it was. I thought it was good. Obviously, you look at the Cleveland Browns. They completely screwed this thing up. So, from their standpoint, they had to ship him out. They had to get rid of him. They had to eat the majority of the salary, and they got basically nothing in return. They got a 5th-round pick. So, Baker Mayfield has played well at times. I think maturity has been an issue. And growing up, this is part of it. This is one of those things where I think as an adult and as a football player, you start to realize, shoot, you know what? I got to grow up a little bit. And so this could be a great wake-up call because he has had stretches where he's played exceptionally well.
Yeah, and then kind of going off of that, I think a lot of us are wondering which Baker Mayfield is actually going to show up, the one from 2020 that led them to the playoffs, or maybe the one from last season where he was plagued with injury. So which Baker do you think shows up to Carolina, and do you think we should maybe be concerned about the injuries that he's had?
Well, the injuries are always a concern, but, I don't think I don't think it's anything that's going to be, going to be one of those things that's recurring. But you're always a bit concerned about that. And there are, and not excuses, but reasons why you don't play well. So I think all those factor into him not playing exceptionally well. But again, part of this whole thing is I get the chip on your shoulder and playing with that kind of intensity. But I think sometimes it goes a little beyond where it needs to go. And it can be a deterrent. And I think that's one of the things that Baker Mayfield has to learn. Has to grow up in that regard. But listen, he's a competitive cuss. He's a smart dude. And when he first got to Cleveland, I remember doing a game at Cleveland that he was playing and them talking about how he can tag every individual route. He can take whatever they give him in the morning and take it to the afternoon practice and not miss a beat and get guys lined up. So from a football acumen standpoint, he knows his stuff. Now it's just about execution like he did in 2020. And I believe that's more of who he is than what we saw last year in an injury-riddled season.
So there's no way Sam Darnold is just going to lie down come training camp. He has to fight for his life in the NFL and for his job. And there's no way the Panthers trade for Baker Mayfield and not want to play him. So how does this play out in training camp? Is there a way that Sam Darnold starts week 1?
Sure. I think this is an open competition. Baker was the number 1 draft choice in 2018. Darnold was number 3 overall. So, there's going to be a competition. I think competition is good. I always kind of just laugh at the competition, the quarterback competition. In every other position, having great competition and fighting for your job is good. At the quarterback position, these guys are so frail that we can't have them compete. My butt, you know what? Let them compete, and the best guy is going to rise to the top. So I don't have any issue with a competition. Now, at some point, you've got to make a decision, and you've got to give that guy the lion's share of the reps. But the first couple of weeks of training camp, hey, let them go at each other.
Going and looking at the offense, there's a lot of questions about what Carolina's offense will look like this season. But do you think that Baker Mayfield can thrive in an offensive system run by Ben McAdoo?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think as long as you give guys an opportunity to lean on their strengths and minimize their weaknesses, and I think that's the biggest job of a coach is to understand what your guys can and can't do. And I think one of the things that happens to a lot of coaches is they see an intriguing matchup or they see something that they want to attack, and they put a guy in a compromised position and think, well, it's okay to put that guy in a compromised position because this is such a juicy matchup and we can dominate this matchup. And ultimately, that's how games are lost. So, it's incumbent upon the coaching staff. It's incumbent upon Ben McAdoo. It's incumbent upon Matt Rule to essentially say, hey, what are our guys' strengths? What do they do well? What do we need to mitigate and put them in positions to succeed? I always say this, when I'm broadcasting or any other kind of walk of life, put a guy in a position to fail. Don't be surprised when he fails. You're the dumbass that put him there, right? And so you have to really understand kind of what you want to do, who you are, what you are. And there are plenty of plays and there's plenty of concepts that a guy, that either of those guys, whether it's Darnold or whether it's Baker Mayfield, that they can thrive in.
Last time we talked on Charlotte Sports Live, you and I talked about the fact that when you were with the Broncos, you knew that on 4th and 1 you were running it right up the middle. That was your identity. And you said the Panthers didn't have an identity a couple years ago, but they've revamped this offensive line. With that, who is this offense? What is this offense with Baker Mayfield? Does it change, or is it still, if Christian's healthy, then they have an offense and have an identity, and without him, they don't?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously Christian makes it. He covers a multitude of sins, right? So that guy can make things happen. You've got to understand, and I believe this wholeheartedly, you've got to understand what you are, what your identity is, and you've got to work on that. And this is a conversation that Matt Rule and I have had in the past, and I've really enjoyed getting to know Matt Rule over the years. And I think he's a hell of a football coach. But I think when you come out of the college system, one of the toughest things to do is understand how to run the football in the NFL and the importance. I understand that it's a league now where 65% of the time you're throwing the football, but you have to be able to dictate in situations in which you have to be able to dictate. And that sounds repetitive, but you have to be able to say, we're going to run it down your throat on 3rd down and 3. And that's got to become something where a defense, to me, has got to be able to sit there and say, we can't be one-dimensional as a defense because they can hurt us in a multitude of ways. The other thing is if you can't run the ball, you cannot be an efficient red zone offense. That's just a fact. And so I think what you have to do, and I think this is one of the issues that a lot of college coaches have moving to the NFL, is how do we run the ball? What do we want to major in? And what is the nuance of running the ball at this level? Because it's different than it is in the college game.
Stink, you're the absolute best. We appreciate you coming on CSL again, brother.
Anytime, man. We'll take care. And it was great to be with you guys, Carly. Great to meet you as well.